respect, I want to introduce you to Hillel Schwartz, Dr. Schwartz. He has saved the historical site and moved us so forward in our goals of providing all the history we have to the public. So welcome, Dr. Schwartz. Are you not going to ring the bell?
Thank you for all the compliments already. In front of you, there is a folder which has much of the information that people have been giving you already. And there is a year in review, which is 2 pages, which is a full accounting of everything that's happened in just 1 year in this schoolhouse and outside. So I think you should take that home and study it, because we are not going to rehearse every single element of everything that has happened here. Also in front of you are freebies if you want a calendar for next year. Since we're a historical society, take a calendar for next year home. Mark your calendar for all the times you're going to come and volunteer with me. Now, much of what I would say is specific is on those sheets, but I will go very quickly through them to give you a sense of actually what it costs to do the archiving, which was a big question. We needed software, we needed hardware, we needed scanners, we needed a new computer, we needed a new printer. We needed a new UV wand to get all of the fungus and bacteria off of our yearbooks. We needed a new scanner attachment so that we could actually scan negatives into positives, because we have 2,000 or more negatives inherited from the newspaper, the Coast Dispatch, and we can't see them very well until we convert them into positives and identify them. So there was a great deal to do simply in terms of getting the materials necessary for archiving, and then there's storage. We needed archival proofing boxes, we needed acid-free paper, we needed the proper pens to write that don't smear on what you're doing. We needed an engraving pen to ensure that nothing would be stolen. We needed locks for all of the new hardware that we had. It does go on, and then I get paid 75 cents an hour.
That's when I got paid in 1966 in streets.
We also did pay an intern this summer to begin scanning that off-white file cabinet, which has all the clippings that were done for 40 years by people sitting through and clipping everything from the local newspapers and putting it into subject categories, 325 of them. So there's about 8,000 to 12,000 clippings that we have to go through, and we're about through 1,000 of them right now. So over the last year, to be very quick, we have completed an inventory of everything of historical value inside the schoolhouse. And you can't imagine where the things were hiding to find everything that was inside the schoolhouse. We photographed and scanned at least 200 posters, maps, pamphlets, photos, and objects, and if you count the photos alone, another 1,000. We removed 7,000 duplicates of photos that were in our digital files. We scanned and then tossed hundreds of moldy newspapers and news clips that would have devastated any collection if you kept them in the same proximity to everything else. We installed new databases and software for historical research as well as archiving, because in order to identify what we actually have to have access to paid databases in order to understand what's in front of us. We used an AI system for transcription of 100 oral history interviews on Betamax and video and audio that had never been listened to since the time they were actually recorded between 1981 and 2010. We created an authority file, 8,000 names of people who lived in Encinitas between 1880 and 1950. So when we label everything, we get the right spellings for everybody and for every street, as well as for many businesses. And then I created a research guide to North County local history, which I hope to be able to show everybody, because I ordered 12 author copies of this, but they're stuck in North Las Vegas somewhere right now. This is an earlier version. It's not the version that I ordered. This is an earlier version. So anybody who comes in here will be able to get information not only about researching for Encinitas, but all over North County, and where places to go will be all over North County and Southern California and San Diego, all the way extending up to Los Angeles. So I will pass this around and you can look at it. A warning, this is a proof copy from an earlier version, so there are typos, there are mistakes, there are layout problems that I hope I fixed, but I can't show you the fixed version right now. You, as a member, can get this at cost for $7. Yeah, so this will be available to you, and the cost actually of printing it is less than $4, and then the shipping and the sales tax, everything ends up being $7. We will sell it online and elsewhere for $12.
It's a profit deal.
Okay, in order to explain to people what an archivist does, I also thought that, well, we are going to be doing a lot of work that won't have any visibility for 2.5 years. What can I do to explain to the world about us that an archivist is not simply someone who wants to preserve things that are old and to make sure that old people are honored? What can I do to show people that we, as archivists, have an ongoing, active relationship with the community itself? So since 2000, I've been taking photos myself along Leucadia and Encinitas of the public art, the murals and mosaics and the sculptures that I saw. And I began asking around once I became archivist here whether anybody, any organization, arts organization, city organization, artist collective, had been keeping a record of all of those things that had been created. And they all said, oh yes, we meant to.
Yeah.
So I decided that as a public overture to all of the communities that constitute Encinitas, I would begin a systematic inventory of all the public art in Encinitas, by which I mean any art that is non-commercial, that is visible from a public thoroughfare or alley, or in a public space like a library or a city hall. And I started in November, and with help of some people then, and with Lillian since then, who's working on the outskirts of Olivenheim and inland, we have now a list with photos and identifications of the artists and possible dates when we have them, of more than 800 works of art in Encinitas, 90% of which is done by local artists. This is extraordinary. There are other towns and cities in the United States that have public art, and they often call in artists from outside and pay them commissions to do that. 90% of our work in Encinitas is local artists. So this is an extraordinary sign of the vitality of the arts in Encinitas, but it's also one of the identifying characteristics of Encinitas, aside from the surfers, aside from the skateboarders, aside from SRF, aside from the Botanical Garden. And that is a collective enterprise that no one knew was a collective enterprise until I began putting together the inventory. And once I began putting together the inventory, people became interested in doing guided tours of all of this. And now we have GIS mapping being done so that people could use it as an app on their phone. Tap on that and you'll find out the information about that particular mural and who did it and why they did it and where's the next one from there to the next place, on and on. Okay, that is all part of being an archivist.
I think you need a round of applause for that.
The key thing that you're doing, which I appreciate, is that you're also recording what's disappeared.
Yes. I have photographs of about 60 works of art that are public works of art, but they have disappeared for no bad reason. The building was torn down, or the owner of the building wanted to repaint the building, and then he would hire another muralist to paint over the previous mural. Or the sea air just plain got to it. and no one had the funds to restore it. But it wasn't malicious. Of all the 800 and more, there are more coming, and Lillian knows there are more coming. Only 2 have any graffiti on them whatsoever. It's astonishing for our community to be able to have.
Just so you know that our mural on the building was graffitied, and the city paid the artist to come back and restore
The
it.
Danforth building?
A big whale downtown was graffitied, and the city paid the artist to come back.
And the city is paying also to redo all the mosaics that are in the circles on the sidewalk along 101. Okay, it's all being redone now. So yes.
I am an artist myself, and over many years I have done murals and various other things in public buildings, from supermarkets to theaters to whatever. And they come and they go because of the very things that you're talking about. And my attitude is, instead of mourning this, it's progress. Stuff happens, and I got paid.
Hopefully more than 75 cents an hour.
Okay, so what's more important at this very moment is that we are still in process. Nothing of this has concluded. So we're still converting the photo negatives. We are still scanning. It holds probably about 12,000 separate pages and about 4,000 photos that we are still in the process of scanning, identifying, and then we are editing all of the AI transcriptions of all of our oral histories, because no matter how good AI is, it really doesn't understand the word Encinitas, which it interprets as insidious. So we need those edited. And if you look on the volunteer opportunity sheet inside your folder, I list all the different volunteer opportunities for archiving that are there. And one of these opportunities is to go home. I can send you the files and you can edit from home some of those oral histories that the AI did a good job but not a perfect job on. And then there are other things you can do at home, and I'm going to have a whole training session starting in November, because we have to now, for the next big aspect of the cataloging of the archiving project, we actually have to catalog everything so that eventually in about a year we can have a research station here with its own computer and its own database, where you can put a keyword in about anything of interest to you in Encinitas, and you will pull up whatever we have, and you will see the document, or you will see the photo, or you will hear the actual oral history, or you will even see possibly a video. Well, this is the little project for the next year and longer, is to catalog everything we have. And for those of you who would like to stay after the formal end of this meeting, I can show you the cataloging system that we have on our computer, and then I can show you that we can sync it to your home computer, so you can begin cataloging things for us from home after you have a training session with us. Finally, we have been getting more and more donations because of our activity. So an archivist gets his hair gray, not because of what he's doing, but because every time he comes in, there's something new to do that he didn't know about before. So if there is any single person who would like to volunteer for our newest donation, which is 24 photos by Robert Wall, including that one, of the Dory Men of Cardiff, we have yet to inventory them and catalog them. But we have 24 beautiful photos that used to be hanging in the Encinitas Library. Robert Wall has also published some of these photos in his magazine called Ocean. He's still around and available to interview, which would be great to have as part of this collection that we have just inherited.
Does this mean you're going to get a raise to 80 cents an hour?
So this year I wanted to make sure that you understood that we get all kinds of new acquisitions. We got a 1940s U.S. flag from a person here whose father who had been in the military in World War II. with the help of Patrick Danforth and Carolyn, we got all of the things that were hanging on the wall in Captain Keno's before it was demolished.
Oh, that's
As well as the most recent menu. Wow! From Linda Hayes, we got these two portraits that were hanging in the Paul Ecke School for 30 years. They replaced earlier portraits of Lincoln and Washington. The Lincoln portrait is the most common portrait of Lincoln to be in schoolhouses in the United States. The Washington portrait is one of the rarest portraits to hang anywhere. It is an unfinished portrait of one of the many that Gilbert Stuart did of George Washington. We have also from Kip Sturdivant received recordings of his grandfather singing songs on the radio in the 1930s from his tours that he did, folk songs mostly, throughout California. From Mark Freeman, a videographer, we received full permission to put on our website 4 of his documentary films, one about the poetry slams in Encinitas, one about a newspaper hawker who used to stand at the corner of Encinitas and Vulcan, one about flower fields, and the final one about our local labyrinth maker who every New Year's and Christmas would go out on the sand and create these enormous labyrinths. And we have also received, and we keep receiving, donations of books. And we get, as well, a budget that we have to buy new books that are relevant to the area. This is about the Cedar Fire. This is Native Americans in San Diego County. San Diego County Parks over 100 years. Historic stage routes in San Diego. Pancho's Encinitas Ventures. We are now working with the author and creator and designer of this book. And an obscure history of baseball in San Diego, which in the middle of it mentions that Encinitas was at the top of the league in 1930. We also have visitors. And this. Just donated, a surfer at heart. Just donated today. I didn't even know that. Right. We also have visitors who come in who are attracted to the history of this society. So a woman came in named Jan Waite, who had been, she said, she was probably the oldest living resident of Encinitas. That is, she had been living in Encinitas in the 1930s. In fact, she lived on Moonlight Beach in 1938, in a house on Moonlight Beach. And so we can interview her. Another woman came because she remembered the boathouses. And she remembered her grandmother living in the boathouses in 1950. Wow. And then she came here and she was overwhelmed with joy about having seen the boathouses. And she painted this picture of the boathouses for us, and she sent us many copies that we can now sell. So our collection is growing, and it is growing as well with old books. This is Lippincot's Pronouncing Biographical Dictionary from the 1880s. This is what you would look at before Google, before the Encyclopedia Britannica, and it has people so obscure that I look here when I can't find them in Google. And finally, in addition to all of this, Carolyn and I have now assumed the coordinating role for CINCH, the Council for Interpreting North County History. This coordinating role means that we bring all of the different groups together for 4 meetings a year and try to get them more active than they have been in the
May I
past.
insert, by groups you mean the other societies and other groups?
I'll explain in a second. So these include historical societies, it includes historical houses and ranchos, it includes archives and libraries all around North County, 35 and more. And we have now gotten them engaged and committed to producing a new CINCH brochure, and I will pass out different versions of that brochure that you can see, and you can see how many groups are involved in this society.
Thank you.
So, with all of that said, I can now move on to introduce the next, which is, with all of the grants. We've also received a gift from June Sekera, who is the founder of the Public Goods Institute. This gift enables us to hire Susan Sage to manage the Public Goods Initiative. Of all of the things that we've been finding in our inventory, perhaps 50 to 60% of that is what you would call public goods, things that the community has decided it needs for itself, for all members of its community, for their health, their well-being, and their security. And it decides to institute them, it decides to pay for them, it decides to maintain them, and through those public goods, it establishes its identity as a community. 50% of what we have in our holdings has to do with these public goods. Roads, signage, if you think about all of the things, schools. This is an 1883 schoolhouse. It was one of the defining buildings for years, and it was a collective enterprise. Roads, bridges, lifeguard stations, fire stations, water pipes, trails, parks, street lights, signage, all examples of what the community at large has decided it needs for its well-being and for all of those who live here. None of us pays a toll to drive down 101. None of us pays a toll to walk in any of the city parks. None of us is excluded because of our income from enjoying the beach. We can walk down the beach stairs and there's not a ticket taker at the top. So she made a gift so that we could continue to assemble all of our materials, but also to begin to display, exhibit, and teach about what we actually have in our entire collection. So when you see this presentation, it will have been developed out of what we actually have here, that we have found and identified and scanned in the last year here. This is then the first fruit of the Public Goods Initiative, and it's also one of the first fruits of our archiving project because they have drawn upon print, photographic, and oral history collections that we now have.